So it is Thanksgiving week. Who's busy? Right? Because you're either buying groceries, you've got to get groceries, or if you're like me, I bought 1 million groceries, but they're still in the bags all over my kitchen counter and dining room table because I was busy. Maybe you got to get your house ready, and I might need the name of the cleaning person.
The name's Mary.
Excellent. See, I might need that because I don't know if I'm going to get my house cleaned before Thursday. You might be packing because you're going to go and share Thanksgiving with somebody else. But this is not the Thanksgiving that we're going to talk about this morning, that I want to focus on. And actually, Ella, she just nailed it. It's about giving thanks to God, right? That's why we're here. The food is great, Pastor Ben. Yes, I've got a menu of 50 different items. Very ambitious. But there's nothing like thanking our God for the blessings that we have. So I want to go look at the story of the lepers. And in every practice of my sermon, I call them leopards. So if I'm talking about leopards, just know I'm not really talking about leopards. They're lepers. I have the story of the 10 lepers in the Gospel of Luke, and I'll be reading from the Message interpretation of the Bible. I'm in Luke 17, verses 11 through 19. It happened that as Jesus made his way toward Jerusalem, he crossed over the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men, all lepers, met him. They kept their distance, but raised their voices, calling out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Taking a good look at them, Jesus said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." They went, and while still on their way, they became clean. One of them, when he realized that he was healed, turned around and came back, shouting his gratitude, glorifying God. He kneeled at Jesus' feet, so grateful he couldn't thank him enough. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus says, "Were not 10 healed? Where are the 9? Can none be found to come back and give God glory except this outsider?" Then he said to the Samaritan, "Get up, on your way. Your faith has healed and saved you." So the crux of this story is that 10 lepers were healed by Jesus, but only one returns to thank him, and he's a Samaritan. And that's important. That's a very important detail why they say he was a Samaritan, because the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans was strained, to say the least. They saw themselves as separate communities, right? So much so that the Jews viewed the Samaritans with suspicion and hostility. They were the others. They were those people, right? And so think about the Jewish people hearing this story. They don't like Samaritans to start with, so they're never going to assume that the Samaritan is the one that does the right thing in a story. So when they heard this, they had to be like, "Oh my gosh, you're kidding, right? The Samaritan was the only one that thanked Jesus? Of all people." But that's exactly what happened. And once he realized he'd been healed, it says he felt compelled to turn back and to share his joy and thanksgiving with Jesus. That's what genuine thanksgiving looks like. It's spontaneous, even involuntary, when you recognize that you've been blessed and you can't help but share your joy and give thanks. The Samaritan knows he's been given a gift, and he rushes to thank Jesus. And in doing so, he receives a second gift because he leaves this encounter with Jesus not only healed, but also blessed. Blessed in his own recognition of healing. Blessed at being drawn into this deeper relationship with the one he thanks. Blessed at hearing himself commended for having great faith. Imagine the difference that made in his life. Him, a lowly Samaritan, being commended by a Jewish rabbi for having great faith. Faith sufficient to effect healing. That's the way Thanksgiving always works. In giving thanks for the gift that we are given, we again are blessed. So, it's really important that we're grateful. We're grateful for our blessings. We're grateful for all that God has done for us. Because in giving thanks for those gifts, we are again blessed. So be grateful for what God has given to you and done for you, and let your thankfulness overflow to those around you. Gratefulness is the state of our hearts that is most pleasing to God. Gratefulness occurs when we recognize our status as forgiven and renewed, when we recognize God's faithfulness to us and faithfulness in our lives, and when we have so much joy that it can't help but spill over to others. This is what happens when we're rooted and grounded in a heart, a thankful heart, a heart full of faith. So if we pay attention and if we look closely, we can find God's blessings all around us. And as we give thanks for them, we notice even more and are blessed again. Now, I know that some would say the last year and a half, it's sometimes been hard to find blessings, right? We've had a long, long time in this pandemic, and there's been grief and there's been trauma, and we've lost people. So sometimes it's hard to see our blessings. But as Christians, one blessing that we always have is the hope that is found in Jesus Christ. One blessing that we always have is the unconditional love of God that we know is there just waiting on us to accept. So during the pandemic, something that's very important to me, something that's special to me is cooking. I love to cook and I love to feed people. I love to have my friends over and my family over to just be the hub of where everybody gathers. And there's something special about sharing that meal. You know, like Thanksgiving dinner will take me 3 days to cook, and they'll eat it in 10 minutes. But it's that time that we're together, that we're brought to the table, that we're sharing. That's a very intimate time, right? That is a time of blessing and a time of Thanksgiving, and the pandemic robbed me of that. My family's all in West Virginia. I couldn't see them for any holidays. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. So we couldn't gather like we usually do. So you remember when we were, I guess maybe 6 months into pandemic, it said, get a quarantine buddy. Find some people. Now I think they meant this for people with little kids, like find a quarantine buddy family and your kids can play together and just agree that you only see each other. So Karen and Charlie had the privilege of being me and Bart's quarantine buddies by default, because Charlie is our office manager and Karen is our lay leader, and so we had to work together. And we live real close to each other. You know, I can just walk to their house and show up randomly. But we became quarantine buddies. And so last year we spent Thanksgiving together. I was sick for Christmas, so I ruined that for everybody. We spent New Year's together. We celebrated all of our birthdays together. And we became this little family unit that is so far from that working relationship, right? Because when we went into quarantine, like, we'd only known each other, 8 months? We barely met. So that really moved along our relationship pretty fast. But we became this little family unit. And it was fun, and we loved gathering together, and it gave us some of that, the rituals, right? That brings comfort. This is what it means to be part of the family of Christ. When I couldn't be with my family, my church family became that close, that comfort, that place where God's blessings were felt. What it means to be part of the family of Christ is that we care for one another. That we're going to be there for each other in good times and in bad times. We're going to be a blessing to each other. We're going to be the source of someone's gratitude. That's why when we baptize babies and when we bring in new members, we all make a covenant to be this family, to take care of each other, right? To support each other, to be the source of someone's gratitude. Gratitude is such a noble emotion, right? It draws us out of ourselves. It draws us into something bigger and something grander than we could ever imagine. And it joins us to the very source of blessing itself. Gratitude is a very powerful emotion. I'm trained as a grief and trauma counselor, and so during pandemic, I was like every week on a different webinar and seminar and, learning. And one of the things that came out of research over the course of the pandemic was if you could help people find things to be thankful for, that helped them deal better with their situation. So gratitude actually helps to ease anxiety. Gratitude helps to take away fears. Gratitude helps to make us feel better about our situation because we realize that it's not all bleak, that it's not all bad. And I wonder, as a Christian, because I've been at times in my life where literally the only hope I had was God. The only one I could depend on was God. I wonder what people do who don't have God. And this is why, as Christians, we are called, and it is such an important part of our call. The most important thing we can do is to bring others into relationship with God. And one of the best ways to do that is to get in relationship with people yourself, right? Because if you just go around and knock on people's door, Ben had a really good video that one week about the donkey chasing the car. Excuse me, have you met Jesus Christ as your personal Savior? Like, that's not going to work. People are going to just be like, leave me alone, weirdo. But if you come and you walk alongside somebody, if you care for them and start building that relationship, eventually, every time I've done this, I've served as a missionary all over the world, all over the United States. Every time, eventually they ask, why do you care? Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Because God sent me to help you. Because God called me to help you. Once you're in that relationship, that conversation can be had. Gratitude gave the Samaritan the courage to return to a Jewish rabbi and say thank you. Realizing that he was more than just a Samaritan. He was more than just a leper. He was more than even just a healed leper. He was a child of God. Whole and accepted and beautiful just as he was. And that's what the 9 missed. It's not that they did anything wrong. It's not that they didn't see their good fortune, but they didn't voice their thanks. And that means they missed out on the rest of the blessing that Jesus had to offer. So let's look at our world again. Is it filled with troubles? Yes. And when this pandemic is gone, it'll be filled with a different kind of trouble, right? Because that's how the world is. But it's also filled with blessing because we are part of the family of Christ. We've had so much to celebrate these last 2 weeks as we brought new members into our family, as we baptized new members today into our family. That's a wonderful thing and an amazing thing to give thanks to God for. We have received this amazing gift. We have accepted the love of God in Jesus Christ. But that's not where our responsibility ends. We are called to pass on God's love. We are called to pass on the good news of Jesus Christ. So I encourage you this week, as we go about our secular Thanksgiving activities, to stop and thank God for all the blessings that God has sent your way. And then don't keep that to yourself. Share that with somebody else so they too can recognize and see all the blessings that God has sent their way. In the season of Thanksgiving, let's share our blessings so that we can be even more blessed.